Hello and welcome back to All the Gear, Some Idea. So we are now on the Yamaha R1, another bike that also doesn't run. Now if you've watched our previous video where this and the Triumph was together, you know a little bit of history about the bike, and it's been off the road for approximately 5 years and it doesn't run. Its MOT expired in 2020 October, and amazingly the other bike that we did the videos together on, the Triumph, I actually managed to get running in the first video, which was not what I was expecting. I was expecting to have to buy parts for it, but it turned out it was some manky stuff in the fuel tank that has dried out, and it's almost like jelly. It's not very nice, but it does smell of petrol. So now we're going to have a look at the R1 and see exactly what we think is wrong with it and go through diagnostic steps. I have managed to get hold of the Yamaha workshop manual. It does have troubleshooting things in there, and I'm hoping that it does have resistance values for X, Y, Z, as I know that these have a pickup for the crank, and obviously if that's gone, it won't spark. So, with that in mind, I think we need to just delve in, have a little look, and see what we can find. Okay, so first things first, let's get the seats off. Now, I know the rear comes off using the key, and I know the seat comes off by lifting it up. There's some screws which have already been undone, ready to be looked at. With the battery, so I have put the bike on charge, as the battery did seem a little bit weak. But if we put the key in, give it the Yamaha jiggle, put it in neutral, and nothing. I think first things first, let's get the tank off. Now the screw up here has already been undone, the one that holds the front of the tank up. Just pull that out. I'm hoping there's nothing actually connected to the tank. Jesus. And there is. So I need to undo the level sensor. And the pipe is split, which is lovely. So we're going to take that off. There's a little bit of fuel in there. Okay, so the airbox cover's already off, and so is the air filter. It's out. Screws around the outside, Phillips, easy. Now, we were told when the fuel pump is plugged in, it blows a fuse for the ignition system. Now the fuses are up here, and it's this middle one here, which is a 15 amp ignition fuse. That hasn't blown with it all connected. The only thing that was disconnected was the green wire, which is for the level sensor. However, trying to start it, it doesn't blow, but I also know that the fuel pump is not doing anything either. It's not ticking. So I think what we need to do is have a look at what voltage we're getting to the pump through here, and see if when we turn the engine over, it's telling it needs fuel. It should just give it, from my understanding, a constant 12 volts. Right, let's test the wiring for the fuel pump. So obviously this is said fuel pump. This is the wiring for the fuel pump down here, which you can see it's a black plug. Turn that on. I'm going to go in the back of it. Hopefully that's in. Boom. So the pump is getting 12 volts, but not doing anything while it's on. Perfect. So when that's plugged in, Nothing. Fine. Let's get this out. Let's have a look at that and see if we can change it if we need to. Oh, Mitsubishi, which is the same as the Kawasaki. So, need another fuel pump, which we have here. Hoping it's the same. It is not the same, but this could work. Just the mounts are different, but that unscrews. I'm just going to try and make this work. Right, what I've done is cut it in half and then drilled some holes in it to allow some cable ties to go through to reattach it, because it's now in two separate pieces, or one big piece rather than, oh wait, they're both big pieces. One piece is no longer joined. If it works. Right, doesn't look very pretty, but it's underneath, so it's good. Now I need to mount it up and figure out which pipe goes where, because it doesn't actually tell me which is in and which is out, which is fantastic. So I will do that now. Right, managed to determine which it is. That's your in, that's your out. Obviously, if you're buying the correct pump, you won't need to be worrying about this. This pipe I will be changing. I just, at this very moment in time, want to get the bike just to see if it starts, or at least get fuel to the carburettors at least. This will obviously be attached to the fuel pipe that goes to the carbs. I just need to put this clip back on, and then we can hopefully mount this back up to the bike and see if we can get some fuel moving around. I'm going to have to use a different clip, but yeah, let's see if we can get some fuel moving around. I'm just going to fit this to the bike. Okay, so we now have a clip on, so I'm going to mount this to the bike, and then hopefully we can get some fuel for it. Let's see what happens. Right, disconnected that hose because it's broken anyway, and we're going to turn the ignition on, and from what happened earlier, ignition on should give us 12 volts, should prime the pump at least, or try to. Okay, cool. Now hopefully that's on the right way around. So let me grab my IV bottle, which we have just here. Just need to find something to hang it up with. Okay, so the IV bottle is now attached. So what we're going to do now is open the tap and make sure there's no leaks. Hopefully. Hopefully when I turn it on, air doesn't come out of there. That was a good sign. I can see fuel is now being pumped through here, and the noise of it changed. Let's try again. So in theory, it should get to a certain point and stop pumping. And we've got a fuel leak. coming from the carburettors, which obviously isn't ideal. So, I think there's more to this bike than we're led to believe. I'm going to just go and check what pressure this is supposed to be putting in, because if it's putting in too much pressure, it could be the reason why it's doing that to the carbs. It shouldn't do. It was for an R1. I'm just presuming it's for a different year. But okay, so supposedly it should be the same, but all 4 carbs are now leaking, which obviously is not ideal. But ideally shouldn't be trying to start it, but it is what it is. We can come to that when we get to it. I've got a fire extinguisher. Right, so let's see what happens when we turn the key on. See, that shouldn't continuously pump now. Let's just try and start it. Okay, she wants to go. You can hear she's trying. Okay, she is really trying to go. However, there is a lot of fuel coming out the intake through the airbox. So what we're going to do now is try and figure out, oh, okay, how you take that off. Well, that was easy. So pull that off, and pull that off. We'll leave them on there because they haven't fallen off. And hopefully, we'll be able to get to the spark plugs. To pull the plugs out and see what they look like. Right, we got that there. Do 2 and 3. Oh, cool. Well, that ain't going to help, is it? Right, hopefully that'll be alright. Need some new coil leads then. Not too bad. What I'm going to do, I'm going to take all 4 of them out, and then we'll have a look at all 4 of them and hopefully clean them up. We'll then hopefully check we've got a spark and go from there. So let me get these spark plugs out. So these are the same as the spark plugs that were in the ZZR 600, which are CR9Es. So these are the old ZZR ones that have probably got a few hundred miles on them. So what I've done is I've just given them a little bit of clean up, and then I'm going to fit them in the bike. And fingers crossed, we'll have something else happen to it. Spark plugs are back in. They are the Kawasaki spark plugs. HT leads are back in. I managed to screw one back in that had come off. We might have a misfire in these new HT leads. Ideally coils and brand new spark plugs and an oil change and everything else if it runs. So what I'm going to do is plug in the fuel pump so there's enough pressure of fuel in there. But I'm going to keep unplugging and plugging it back in because it's obviously overpressurizing the carbs somehow. Or the carbs are just knackered and need to be rebuilt, which is fine. But I'm not sure that this Chinesian pump is the best pump. So what I'm going to do is just get ready to try and start it, turn the fuel back on and see what happens. Right, let's plug this back in. Give it a bit of pressure. Unplug it. And hopefully something happens. So she doesn't start with clean spark plugs. I probably should have checked out a spark when they were out. I'm tempted to hit it with some dragon's breath and see what happens then. Right, let's hit it with some dragon's breath. The pump's plugged in, see what happens. Oh. Hello. Okay, something that's bugging me a lot is, yes, it ran, so it does run, but I know the fuel is leaking from the carbs, but without the fuel to turn the fuel off, it should in theory fire on brake cleaner, but it's not. And that doesn't make sense to me, which is probably why it's not starting, even though we've got fuel coming from the carbs. It should start on brake cleaner. So I'm going to take a look at the coils to see what the plugs are like and the resistances of them. Now, we already know that the HT lead, one of them is a bit naffed, which could create a weak spark. It's obviously sparking for it to try to start and run, but I just don't understand why, when putting a little bit of brake cleaner through it, it doesn't want to know anything about it. Whereas normally you'd expect it to just bark up on the brake cleaner, sound a bit rough, and then die. But we haven't got that. So I've got a document on my laptop. I'm going to bring that up now so we can test the coil packs, check the wiring, see if there's any corrosion in there. I've literally just taken the plastic cover off the top and unscrewed them. So let's have a look at that, and then we will continue the diagnosis as to why it's not running. Okay, so what we're doing is looking to see if there's any reason why we should have a weak spark. Now, I've pulled out the spark plugs and I've tried testing it, and it's sort of intermittent on when it's actually working and not working. So if I plumb this into here, that's 313 on the multimeter. That's across the coil pickup. That should be, so that's 312, and it should be between 248 and 372. So that is good. So the pickup itself is all right. I will show you in a second what I'm looking at. Okay, so as you would have seen, that the pickup for the coils is all good. So what we're looking at is this sort of flow chart on the Yamaha workshop manual. So what we're at now is measuring the primary resistance of the coils. So we're going to go on both tabs of the coil, and hopefully we're going to get between 1.87 and 2.53, about 20 degrees, which is about now. So just going to set the multimeter up now and then show you. But before I do that, one thing I've noticed is on the coils themselves, there's corrosion build-up on the actual pins for them, and it's also the same on the wiring on the bike, which I'll show you now. So it's actually quite hard to see, but you can see there's a little bit of corrosion here. I think the other side was worse, so we'll need these cleaning up, which could be a cause of a weak spark. But we're going to carry on with the investigation and see what else we can find. So that is at 2.1 to 2.1 ohms, and it should be, as I said earlier, 1.87 to 2.53. So that is actually reading okay. Now, earlier when I tested it, it was 6 ohms, and it was actually from the other multimeter, reading roughly the same. But I bought another one because it was messing up a little bit. But yeah, so that is showing that that coil is actually okay. So it could just be a bit of the corrosion that's in there. But we're going to carry on anyway, and now we're going to test the secondary side, which is through these ends here. So let's do that now. Okay, so let's test the secondary side. So put one in there, and one in there. Now that should be 12 to 18, and we have 14.6. So once again, that is also okay. So it looks like the coils might be okay. It does concern me that the first time I tested them, they were reading 6 ohms. So it may be a fault within the coil. What we also need to test is the other side, which I have already done, and it is the same as this side. However, on the other side, there is some corrosion within the actual lead itself, which I'll show you now. So as you can see, a bit of built-up corrosion here. Now this, I've actually already cut back about this much. So I'm not sure how far through it goes, but that's obviously could be a cause, another reason for a weak spark. Okay, so what we're testing for now is the spark plug cap. So what I'm doing is one on one side and one on the other. And then if I bring that closer, so that's reading 10.4. Now, what it should be is 10. So that one is close enough to being okay. It is old, so you're not expecting it to be 100%. So this is the next one, which is reading 12.2. So that is 2,000 ohms higher than it should be, or 2.2, and it should be 10. So that's going to potentially cause a weak spark. If we go on to the next one. Okay, so this is the next one, which is 11.28. So that's 1.28 higher than it should be, and that's 1,000 ohms higher than it should be. And then on to the final one. Now, this one, I'm struggling. I'm getting it in, I can feel that they're in the right places, but it doesn't actually... Oh, there we go. 10.73, just a little bit high, but it's very, very temperamental on this one. I'm to properly force it into the actual plug itself. But that one's kind of okay. That's not very easy for you to see, but they are all split and they're not in very good condition. Now inside, let me put the light on. Inside you can see how corroded that is in there. It's not very shiny. And then if we go to the other side, which is the screw side, you can't really see that. So let's look inside this one. Once again, a bit of corrosion built up in that coil, in that plug cap. But that side's all okay. Now this side's much better, even though it's showing that it's out of tolerance. It's a lot cleaner inside. Same on that in there. On to the final one that we can actually hopefully see. So that one's okay. And that one there is also shiny. Now the one that we can't see down. So this one, look how corroded it is in the top where the actual HT lead will screw in. Now this is from cylinder 3, which is the one that had the corrosion in the lead. So that's another reason why we could potentially have a weak spark. Okay, one other thing that I've had brought to my attention through some of the forums is checking this white plug. Now, I'm not entirely sure how this is going to make a difference unless it needs the instrument cluster to be attached for it to work. I've not looked at the wiring diagram yet. What I have found is it's a little bit green in there. So those connectors could do with cleaning up. I know one of the wires has been repaired by putting their own wire in and cutting it back and everything. So we need to check all of that, especially because it's not got a crimped connection that's actually watertight. Water can just get in there. So that's what we need to do at some point as well. Okay, so there we have it. We have now looked at most things electrical on the bike that will be causing a problem. Obviously, we've just looked at that white plug. We've looked at the coils themselves. We've looked at the wiring a little bit. We've looked at the HT leads. We've looked at the coil caps, the spark plugs earlier in the video. Yeah, it's all a bit meh. Some things are showing okay, some things are showing not okay, and it depends what time of day you're checking it. So one other thing I've looked at, I managed to get the bike running again with a multimeter on the battery, and I've found that the battery is not being charged when it's running. So that's obviously a stator or a rectifier issue. It looks like it's been changed, which makes me a little bit nervous, but they've also messed around with the wiring down here, which we'll take a look at in a future video. So we've also ordered a voltage rectifier and a stator, just in case there's a problem with those. We can have a look and get it sorted. Now I'm aware that after doing all of this, it may be a problem with the actual igniter unit itself, which is the CDI box. That could be causing a problem for weak spark or minimal spark or no spark, as it doesn't spark a lot and it's really hard to get it on video. It's really weak spark, and I believe what's happening is when you're putting the fuel in and also potentially brake cleaner, it's kind of just blowing the spark out. It's not enough, and it just happens that we catch it at the right time for it to start on brake cleaner. So in the next video, I'm going to be removing the carburettors so that we can strip them down, see what's wrong, and hopefully rebuild them and get all the float heights correct. Then we can get that refitted to the bike, and fingers crossed that will mean we have no fuel leak when we're trying to actually start the bike. In the meantime, we'll be waiting for all of the other parts to turn up for the bike, and we can sort of fit them one by one. There's not many parts coming, but the caps, the spark plugs, the HT leads with the coils attached. We'll also replace the wiring for that, but that'll be in a later video once we've got the carburetors rebuilt and hopefully not leaking. So I was hoping that we would find something definite on the bike. Obviously, the bonus to all of this is we do know the bike runs. The engine does start, which is a massive win for the video, really. We've managed to get the Triumph running in the last video, and now we've managed to get the R1 running, albeit not the best, but it does run. We just need to figure out why it can't start on its own, which hopefully we've now done. If you want to see more videos on the R1, the Triumph, or the K100, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that bell icon, and I'll see you next time.